Pirate Software, a man who invaded everyone's YouTube shorts faster than he seemed to kill his own reputation. But if you take his word for it, that's not really his fault, and why wouldn't you take the word of a man who's done it all? He worked at Blizzard for 7 years.
I used to work at Blizzard Entertainment.
He hacked nuclear power plants.
I hacked power plants for the federal government, and they flew me around the country to hack those facilities.
He threatened to sue a dude who didn't deserve it.
Hey, Kronos, we have to file a legal complaint. We're going to take you to court. You're going to lose.
Look how mad he is. I'm so fine with this.
He insulted a guy who just tried to help consumers.
Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
And he developed and released a full game. Oh, wait. It's kind of weird, huh? He's a programmer, right? A game developer. I thought he streamed and worked on this game's code every single day. But from recent videos, I think he's a drama YouTuber or something. Oh, wait a minute. While I was editing this, a second drama has just hit the Pirate Software HQ. It looks like this guy, Coding Jesus, critiqued Thor's programming for a game that he was making. And under all of this drama, it is that very game that people seem to have just forgotten about. And I knew in my heart that someone eventually was just bound to dive into it. I'm talking, of course, about Pirate Software's game, Champions of... No, I'm just kidding. We're talking about Heartbound, but not the ongoing early access issues surrounding Heartbound or this new drama discussing how apparently absolute dog water his coding is. I want to get into the actual game. As it turns out, I, like many others, find Pirate Software very interesting, but just more in an annoying and kind of frustrating lolcow way. On one hand, if you watch his shorts, you just can't really shake that feeling that he might be one of the more, we'll just say, narcissistic people on the platform.
Yeah. That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro.
But on the other hand, he's presented as a welcoming dude who's super knowledgeable about cybersecurity and programming and wants all the indie developers to thrive and to inspire everyone to keep making games. I'm not sure if you actually heard this, but he worked at Blizzard. I mean, he's a dude who got all these black badges from DEF CON. The man hacked nuclear power plants, for God's sake. So one would think that programming a game would be a cakewalk for someone of his caliber. I mean, this game is probably amazing. But I mean, Thor doesn't just have technical ability. He has a fun and creative side too. And it honestly really pisses me off, I'm not gonna lie. The way Thor and his community do these little quips, you know, like the...
Actually, chat, hot dogs, bread, meat, bread. That's a sandwich, chat.
It's insufferable. It's like I'm listening to a Redditor talk at me. And trust me, I'm bringing this up for a reason because Redditness becomes very important later. But anyways, for a creative like Thor, he should easily be able to write an engaging story and dialogue. That was all just a long-winded intro for me to rationalize for myself that playing Heartbound was actually a good idea and I didn't waste weeks of my time playing the game and editing and making this video. Now, you know, if a game has been in early access for 7 years and it still costs $10, then one would imagine that this is just packed to the brim with content. Anyway, chat, here's Heartbound. Right off the bat, Heartbound is a game that really wants you to care about it. It really wants you to feel emotion, and it tries to say a lot without seemingly doing anything. And the more you play the game, the more you realize there isn't really much of a game at all. One of the toughest things as a developer and game writer, and me, is hooking you from the moment you interact with the content.
I tied up an
Yeah,
The first few seconds of a video or intro to a video game, that's imperative. It's a first impression. How does Thor do that with Heartbound? From the very beginning, it plops you into an abusive household, and within 5 minutes, your only friend in the world, your dog Baron, dies. The long lost or dead dog trope has always been a thing, and to be honest, it feels kind of cheap here. For someone who will talk negatively about people who supposedly clickbait or raise bait with their videos, he does the video game equivalent of it right here. There's a right way to do this and a wrong way. It's like the game is screaming at you to feel sad, you stupid idiot. But besides the fact of the human reaction of being sad when an animal dies or goes missing, the game just completely fails at making you care about this dog at all. In fact, he's kind of annoying, to be honest.
Shut the fuck up!
I mean, that might just be me, because I hate this dialogue, and we'll get into that later. But not only the introduction, but everything communicated to you in this game is done with the subtlety of hitting you in the face with a truck. Heartbound makes it painfully clear that it wants to be yet another one of those indie mental health games. You know the ones. You think you're playing a classic RPG, but the story is really kind of some metaphor for, I don't know, you're autistic or something. Heartbound has you, the main character, Lore, dealing with past trauma and the mental toll that unresolved issues can have on a person. Lore has a dad that's distant and always working, a dog who died, and a narcissistic mother. And all these would probably be fine in the context of a mental health game, except Heartbound isn't just that. Heartbound insists on being more and keeps packing in more story. As all the extra junk piles up, I didn't even remember that I started this game looking for my dog. In fact, I wasn't sure what I was doing or what the point of any of this was. Who the hell is this guy? Why are these Crash Bandicoot mask-looking assholes always talking to me? How does the furry zone relate to the rest of the story? Why do I keep morphing into some embarrassing edgelord? My eyes glow when I'm angry. Oh my god, remember that game Undertale? You know where you just got dropped into some weird world and it was all kind of familiar though? And it hooked you from the very beginning because of how witty it was, and it went in ways you didn't expect, especially when you fought that flower like right at the beginning. Dude, that was pretty neat. And even when you were in this unfamiliar world, it still all came together in a nice bow right at the end. And the world felt lived in. Well, Heartbound is like the exact opposite of all of that. I mean, I'll just say it right now, Heartbound's story feels like it wasn't planned out, or Thor had some kind of overarching idea for it and then just decided to wing it.
That's a really stupid ass move.
Yeah, dude, exactly. I totally agree. Because at first, it seems like the entire premise is built around lore dealing with past trauma, and it's one of those mental health games. And sure, you can easily use trauma as an allegory for your main character to fight against, but then the story shifts to finding your dog, and then you get saved by some old stranger binder with magical powers, and apparently you might have them too, I guess. What's the point of this? Why is this guy called Binder? Why do I gotta look for this artifact to find my dog? That's not really explained. What the hell is this artifact? Why is it talking shit on me? But hey, we might never find out because we never see this dude again, and the game still isn't finished. I mean, really, you just meet him in this room and then he fucks off for the rest of the game, which is strange because it seems like at one point he was a major plot thread to the entire story. Now, if you take a peek at the Pirate Software logs of what still needs to get done, Binder is coming back as a character in Act, whatever this one is. But for the last 7 years, this dude was relegated and locked into Act 1, and still is, and only Act 1, which is referred to as the homeworld, even though you can never go back to it. This is your actual homeworld. From here, you just choose from the 1.5 acts Heartbound currently allows you to play. First world here on the left is called the Tower, which is basically a parody of corporate office life in America. Now, if you know how outspoken Thor is with his opinion on anything, you could probably see where this is going. No one can convince me otherwise. This entire world exists in Heartbound, so Thor can preach about how much he hated office life and how he's way better off because he went against the grain and quit to do his own thing. I'm assuming it was about Blizzard because he talks about how much he hated it there.
I quit Blizzard because it sucked, dude.
Here's the rub though. Thor has a possible legitimate point to make here, but he conveys it in the most passive-aggressive and patronizing way possible. If you're super passionate about something and you want to pursue your dreams, doing something you'll enjoy and generate wealth for you and your family doing it, yeah, you should probably do it. Obviously work for him, but at the same time, leaving a job to start a business or solo venture, it's the first world equivalent of putting your life on the line, and unfortunately more often than not, you end up in the streets. But in this section, he actively goes out of his way to impart this thinking on one of the most obviously scummy characters who you intern under. A character who says he can't go against the grain multiple times because he has a family to feed. Well, I mean, guess what? That's the real world. Some people have to stay at their office job because they have responsibilities. They have a family to feed. Would people who feel trapped like to go out and pursue their dreams? Yeah, I'm sure they would. But we live in a society, and it costs a lot. The rest of this section is as subtle as the rest of the game, as in it's not at all. Thor lays it on thick when the main character is stamping letters in a mailroom. The negative voice in your head that pops up from time to time, by the way, there's no explanation for this either, but he tries to tell you that this menial work is fine, like it's a good job, it's repetitive, and it's safe. So yet again, the problem is Thor is writing this stuff. He sometimes might have something interesting, dare I say helpful, to convey to the player, but will insist on saying it in a way that degrades anyone who thinks the opposite. I'm not the only person who noticed this.
There's something about the way that I hear you talk that rubs me the wrong way.
It's like the player is being patronized through this entire section. It gets a little meta if you think about it. In my opinion, Thor is clearly projecting his past issues he had working the 9-to-5 corporate life, probably at Blizzard, as a past trauma for Heartbound's main character to deal with, and by extension, you, the player. The only payoff this has relating back to the actual game at all is that you confront your mother, and then that's it. It's not brought up again. But hey, let's move on to Furry Town. If a world populated by animals sounds completely unrelated to the office tower that we were just in, it's because it is completely unrelated. I will say this though, it's really well done. From the character sprites to the art to the music to the cozy autumn theme of it all, it's nice. You know what? Let's all take a little break. Let's step back from the internet hate machine or whatever some people like to call it. Let's talk about some stuff that I do enjoy about Heartbound. Oh, you could go. You go sit over there. We don't need it for this part. Okay, thank you. It cannot be denied that the art by Brady Shea is very well done. The pixel art, the characters, the facial animations during the scenes or dialogue, it has this charm that indie games are known for. Can't we just admit that these are enjoyable? To me, they are. And the music that's playing here and throughout the rest of the game, it's actually great. It's written by Stins van Wakkeren. Here's his name. Go listen to some of the music because I won't just sit here and play out the full soundtrack for you, but just take my word for it. It's pretty good. So yes, Heartbound's art and music is undeniably good. All right, let's get back to shitting on the game. The rest of Animus, meaning everyone and everything in this entire area, is annoying. Not to mention the entire storyline here is that you have to fix a clock or something like that. Not sure, to be honest, just know that you're going to walk around a lot. And now that I think about it, the only reason the clock is implemented into the gameplay is because Thor found out how to code a night and day cycle. Again, it's a neat little gimmick, but it seems like we're just jamming it in here for the sake of saying, hey, I know how to program this, because nowhere else is this mechanic utilized, either visually or having characters have day or night cycle actions. It's just not there. And as far as Animus goes, the day and night cycle just kind of exists, okay? Does it do anything else? Thanks, I guess. The only plot point that happens that brings you back to the themes of Act 1, where you're some kind of chosen edgelord with latent powers or something, is these floating mask assholes that talk to you in purposely vague language. They offer you no information despite popping up several times just to talk to you and waste your time. Hey, I love mysterious dialogue for the sake of being mysterious. That's pretty cool. Oh, hey, by the way, do we need another 2 mentor-type characters to guide us? We already have this old guy, Notepad or something, and we've learned nothing about him. And now we have these seemingly completely unrelated characters that we also know nothing about. Couldn't you just replace these 2 guys with the old guy again? It'd make a lot more sense, right? Bringing in past characters that were already introduced a few acts ago, even if the game is only halfway finished, and I'm pretty sure it's not. How are you gonna have these guys and Binder reveal who they are and then wrap it all up? But I mean, don't worry, to keep up with the overall theme of the game, we also learn nothing about these guys because we're never told anything further, and we never see them again. And because Animus still isn't completed. There isn't much of anything to say about Animus because it doesn't say a lot to the player. And that way, the homeworld, the tower, and Animus just seem like separate story ideas that Thor wanted to put into the game, regardless of if they fit together or not. But to be honest, you would expect this game to be kind of haphazard, right? Given that it's been in early access for nearly a decade and was probably a spark of an idea in Thor's head long before that. Over time, gameplay ideas are probably going to change. You might shift where you want the story to go, your interests change. I mean, hell, you might not even be the same person you were 10 years ago. Might have had a second puberty, who knows? The bottom line is, the story you wanted to tell almost 10 years ago, it might not be the same story you're excited to tell now. And because of that, things might change. And what wouldn't surprise me at all is that you might grow as a programmer. Things that limited you when you started to make the game, they might not be a problem anymore. But after writing a bunch of code over 7 years, you might be kind of stuck with it, or maybe you just don't want to change it now. Like, for example, when you started programming the game, you didn't know how to implement RPG mechanics and inventory and a level progression and anything interesting like that. And then you just said, F it. I just won't include any of that. Which brings me to the elephant in the room. What do you actually do in Heartbound? What is the actual gameplay? And maybe you took a surface level glance at this game before and you might be expecting me to talk about, I don't know, maybe some cool items you could find or secret areas or powers you can unlock, because I mean, clearly you have some sort of dormant powers within you. I mean, that's the theme that they introduced in there. And that in turn should bring in lots of fun combat, right? Well, let me direct your attention here. This is one of the only fights in the entire game. I did not misspeak. This one moment of combat, approximately 10 minutes into the game, is one of the only fights you will ever take part in. Now, I know the Steam page says that combat is skill-based only, and levels and experience and consumables and all that fun stuff that might be too difficult to code into a game, it's all just left out of Heartbound. Remember, this is a line from the Steam page, a line that's supposed to sell you on the game. Oh, I mean, well, yeah, like I love RPGs too, without any of that RPG shit. You heard about Heartbound? At the very least, the combat style attempts to differentiate itself from the very game it seems to be heavily inspired by. I'm sure you can't guess what that is. Pirate Software actually changed the combat just enough to make it kind of interesting. It's still a bullet hell like Undertale, but I guess visually it's a little different. But in the end, it all feels so mediocre. There's nothing behind it. Like the Steam page said, there's no levels, there's no consumables or items or anything like that. And really, when you play the game, you find out, hey, there's no combat either. Something else interesting I found while looking into this system is I noticed that Pirate Software uploaded this video titled Current Battle System 7 years ago. The problem is including the word current which implies that there will be further updates to the combat system. And the combat system, as far as I could tell, is exactly the same. And having a battle system in the first place kind of implies that the entire system will be used in multiple fights. But it's not like this matters anyway, because this is the one fight you will engage in the entire game. It's less of a combat system and more of a one-off mini game. Oh wait, no, actually there is a boss fight, but calling it a boss fight is like saying I'm having fun with Heartbound. It's just not true. The boss fight in Act 2 amounts to you recounting memories and choosing the very obvious good or bad option, which in turn does damage to your mother. And that's it. But the intro of this boss fight, it really blue balls you. I hate to say it, because it really makes you think you're finally going to get in some more combat. Like, this animation's going crazy on this character in Act 2. It's practically telling you that shit's about to go down. Oh man, here. So I must stress this, if you didn't get the hint already, if you're looking for classic RPG elements that you're used to in a game that's advertised as an RPG, look elsewhere. So let's get back to the point of this section. You're probably still wondering, Palsky, if combat is just a tiny fraction of the gameplay, then what is in the game? What do you actually do for the remaining majority of Heartbound? Well, I will tell you, there is a small puzzle section. All I had to do was look at my chat feed. I mean, I just had to think really hard. And then I said, just kidding, these were pretty simple. But you want to know about the majority of gameplay? Well, I'm showing it to you. This is it. You walk around and you talk to people. If people call Death Stranding a walking simulator, then Heartbound is the indie version of that times 1,000. You know what? Screw it. I actually sat here and calculated the amount of time spent walking and talking in my blind playthrough. And I also included the time spent on combat and minigames, because, I mean, they are in there. And here it is. And one of the bigger problems with this is that talking to people, the dialogue of this game, reading it, gets exhausting. It's because a lot of the dialogue and text is, quite frankly, insufferable. You don't really know how grating Reddit speak is until you're exposed to it for almost 3 hours straight. I mean, look, we all love a little quirky dialogue when it's done well. Earthbound did wacky and quirky stuff. These weird things would happen. You have a talking bee called Buzz that flies to you and tells you about some dark future that's going to happen. It has a charm to it. Undertale took inspiration from that and adapted a similar humorous tone to its characters and its world. But Heartbound does it constantly, everywhere, all the time, with no breaks. It's heavy-handed and it's annoying. Almost every line of dialogue and text that you read is a blatant gag, a dad joke, or something that I can only assume is an inside joke between Pirate Software and its community. So much so that it breaks the immersion and you become painfully aware that you're playing a game that was written by Thor, someone who seemed to want to copy Undertale and Earthbound, a charm and humor that simply can't be recreated. The problem is Heartbound desperately tries to. Okay, I have to admit it though. There was a moment where you have to grab a post-it note in Heartbound and you grab it, and when you turn around, it's just on your face. Okay, now that's fucking funny. Does Heartbound have varied characters with different personality traits? Sure. But I just can't shake the feeling that the dominant personality trait of almost every character is talking with a shit-eating grin. One perfect example of this is the character in all of the dialogue that she was given. She's a mole named Avocado, because that's how you make guacamole. When you meet her, you do this whole fishing minigame sequence that's jammed to the gills. See, that's a joke that would be in there. With this pointless dialogue and these quips. There's also a ridiculous amount of, and I don't even know what to call this kind of dialogue. I should probably just read it out loud for you. Sorry. I had to do this so you do too. At one point, Avocado throws a fishing pole at Lore, and Lore goes, "Who threw a fishing pole at me?" Avocado says, clearly nobody here. And then later, Avocado throws a shoe, and Lore asks her, "Who throws a shoe? Honestly." That's an Austin Powers reference from 20 years ago, you get it? And Avocado responds, "Clearly not me." And Laura goes, "Really?" And Avocado responds, "Nope." Do you see how all this is like pointless garbage? But it doesn't stop there. You have an entire different scene with more pointless, aimless dialogue for another, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. It felt like an hour. It's such a shame too, because this fishing scene actually had the workings of something charming. Something I could see happening in a more enjoyable game, like Undertale. Avocado gets all excited to fish for this river monster that she swears exists, and at the end it turns out to just be a stick, and you guys have a nice laugh about it. And then when you guys leave, the monster shows up. See? Alright, what could I say? That's friggin' cute. The problem with this scene is two Redditors blabbing on for about 15 minutes trying to be smarmy or something. I don't know if this is Thor's idea of flirting or what this conversation style is, but it sucks. These mini games like this fishing segment that I just mentioned are good to break up the monotony of just talking to NPCs, but it's not really a break in some aspects. They still blab on endlessly while you're just trying to play the game. And with no combat or actual gameplay to break up this monotony, you're just walking around and clicking and getting this type of dialogue all the time. Again, this is where combat would really help to break up this monotony. And I really hate to keep harping on combat, but I have to, because Pirate Software himself seemed to have a very interesting idea for it. In this interview, he himself stated that one of the major planned features is how combat ends in an exploration game where you play through the memory of that character from their perspective. My hope is to show that in a lot of cases, good and evil are just perspective shifts. Hey, you know what? That sounds really interesting. Too bad it's not in the game. Now, I'm sure he might get upset with me crying and drama farming about how there's no combat in this game, because it seems between this interview in 2017 and this short that he posted in 2023, things changed.
The whole game is dialogue. The whole thing. The whole game is story. The whole thing is story.
Even if I agree with that argument and said, all right, you know what? You're right. Screw the combat, screw the mini games. The game is all dialogue. It's all story. But there is no story there either. In Heartbound, please tell me, how does Avocado relate to the tower? Does she know anything about your mom or your dad? Does anyone in Animus know anything about this old dude Binder? Do these characters interact or have any bearing on the story other than being interaction points to bring you down a light or neutral or dark path? Where's your dog? What's the point of the dog? Basically, I'm just asking. I need to know what substantial story is being told to the player besides some purposely cryptic nonsense. That's just it. I didn't get anything. The plain fact is that Heartbound, in my opinion, is a jumbled mess. It wants to say and do too much while being completely shallow in its gameplay. It wants to hit on mental health. It wants to insert a main character who has hidden dormant powers. It wants you to go on an adventure to find your dog. It wants to insert these characters and yet say nothing about them. It wants you to be able to pick a light and dark path. Look, I know that writing isn't easy, but as it stands now, Heartbound seems like a messy conglomeration of all of Pirate Software's ideas, and less about making the ideas all work out to be a cohesive game with a coherent story. It seems like, in his mind at least, putting these constant dad jokes, mystery for the sake of being mysterious, and little inside jokes that probably only his community would understand is what makes the game entertaining. But for someone from the outside, it just doesn't. It ends up making each act seem like a totally separate game, or at the very least, a completely different idea that's trying to be part of one single game. And after all this time and development, I'd expect something that seems a little more, I don't know, put together? Some people are rightfully feeling burned by this, and combined with the recent drama surrounding Thor, and I guess there's a lot, it's brought on a overwhelmingly negative review score for his game on Steam. And while Thor does say a lot of people have been buying this and just so they could play it for 15 minutes and then immediately refund it and then they could leave a review, I'm sure now I know that a lot of these reviews are probably genuine. And the monthly updates that were promised, just from what I could tell, some of them don't seem to add too much to the game. The last update on May 28th, 2025 basically amounted to adding facial animations to the Clash, which is a few second animation. With the previous May 1st, 2025 update, there seemed to be some more substantial additions, including new routes for every possible interaction with the Mossbacks, these turtle guys. But here's the thing, this area where you meet the Mossbacks was completed 8 years ago. You can see it in here from this video dated September 27th, 2017. Now, I am not a game developer. I'm not a programmer. But for a map or zone in a game world to be completed and playable, and then for it not to be populated with all the routes and characters added until 8 years later, it's kind of crazy, man. Little things may have been added over time, but from what I played, it's pretty obvious we're still not anywhere near close to the game being completed. Just for some perspective on this, Undertale took under 3 years to complete. Deltarune Chapter 1 and 2 took an estimated 6 years to complete. Stardew Valley, a game that seems way more complex and involved than most of these games, was programmed by one person and took 4.5 years to finish. All these fully playable and released games took less time to develop than Heartbound. And to be honest, I could have played any single one of those games. I could have played the first 30 minutes. I would have been hooked. I played 2 hours of Heartbound, and it sucked. Early access or completed, whenever that's going to be, Heartbound just is not a good game.